I am here. I'm from LA. I grew up in LA and I actually disappeared for 11 years. So I was 18 years old and I joined the Air Force and I entered the military, young man. And after I entered the military, I started to travel the world. I joined the Air Force because of my dad. So my dad and my mom, they're immigrants from Iran. And my dad came to the US like 1979, height of the Iranian Revolution. He was in the Iranian military for like 4 years. And then after his time in the military, he came here to the US 1979 and he wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force. So he wanted to be a pilot and he went to Northrop University, finished his education in aerospace engineering. But at the time, we weren't really in the business of accepting non-US citizens into those roles. So my dad had to chase like a new dream. And I just wanted to do something that made him proud and kind of serve him and honor him in a way. So I joined the Air Force to honor my dad. And I did that. And I stayed in for those initial four years, turned into six turned into like 10 turned into 11. And I got to see the world. Like I left at 18. I was first stationed in Germany for a couple of years. I was at Spangdahlem Air Base. After Spangdahlem, I went to Osan Air Base in South Korea. So I was in Korea for a year. After Korea, I went to Japan. I was at Yokota Air Base in Japan for 3 years. It was dope. Tokyo was amazing. And then after Japan, I was stationed in the UK for 4.5 years. And I finished my time out over there. And I just got out of the military like 3 months ago. And
Wow.
I just hit the ground running. It's been crazy. It's been really crazy. So I hit the ground running. One of the things, so I was a civil engineer in the Air Force. And that was cool for like the first 4 or 5 years. And after I felt like I did my dad a solid, I served him, I kind of fell out of love with the job. I loved the Air Force, but I didn't really like civil engineering anymore. So after that, I got an opportunity at around like my 7, 8 year mark. I was a staff sergeant. Someone said, "Hey man, you love training, you love speaking. Why don't you become an Air Force instructor?" And the opportunity presented itself and I took it and I got hired. And I had this wonderful opportunity to take a bunch of airmen, junior airmen who were becoming staff sergeants in the Air Force, leaders. And I got to take 16 of them at a time for 24 academic days, 7 times a year. And I got to share the lessons and the principles and the concepts, my stories about leadership, communication skills, supervisory skills, and just pour that into them for 24 days and help them become better non-commissioned officers. And I was tap dancing out of bed and into work every single day. I loved that job. It was so dope. And I got to do that. And then it came to an end. And like every good thing, how it always comes to an end, you kind of go back to what you were doing. I was going back to civil engineering at the time. And I didn't really like it.
Just not the same.
It was just not the same. I was already so fired up after being an instructor. I was like, this is not the white horse. Like I need to chase this. And people kept telling me, man, you love this. You love speaking. You love training. You love kind of being someone who can help other people. Why don't you do this full time? Why don't you leave the military and do it? And everyone kept telling me that, my prior students, my superiors, my subordinates. And eventually I just decided I needed to listen to everyone's advice on this because they were seeing what I wasn't seeing. And I ended up deciding to take the honorable discharge and I got out of the Air Force. And I got out of the Air Force and I got back here to LA at the end of October in 2018. And when I got back, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a business model. I didn't have a direction. I just knew I wanted to teach and train. That's all I knew I wanted to do. I remember when I was in the military, I remember being in my classroom with my airmen and I remember looking at them and they were just so in love with the vibe we created in that classroom. I was just thinking, man, I want to do this full time. And I just saw that vision. I was like, I don't know what it looks like to do this full time. I don't know what it looks like doing it outside of the military. I just want to do it. And I had a vision. So I got out with that vision. 2, 3 days after leaving the military, I met someone at an entrepreneurial center. Basically, when I got out, I was just like, you know what? I'll take my planner and I'll just fill my planner up with a bunch of business networking events because I heard that's what you do. You just go and like you schmooze, you mingle with people. Yeah, you just go and
take action. Yeah.
You take action. You just go, hey, what's your story? Kind of learn about them, share your story. So I looked up on the Meetup app, saw a bunch of business networking events in my area, put them down on my calendar, and I said, hey, for this week, I'm just gonna go check things out. So I grew up in Torrance, and I went to this place in Old Torrance called the South Bay Entrepreneur Center. Never heard of it, don't know what they do, what the mission is. I said, I'm gonna go check it out. I walk in that day, 3 days out of the military, and I walk in and a woman greets me at the front door. And she says, hey, how you doing? Where are you from? Where have you been? Who are you? And I kind of introduced myself and she goes, oh my God, I need it. Hey, you guys got to meet this guy. I'm going to take you out of the room. You got to meet this guy. Got to meet this guy. And I introduced myself and everyone was like, wow, really cool. You served in the military. You're back home. I was like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I just wanted to come here and introduce myself and get to know everyone else. Meeting went well. There was some training involved, some mingling, some contact exchanging. And at the end of the meeting, this woman says, hey, listen, I want you to come to one of my meetings tomorrow. And I was like, okay. Sure.
Pulled out the calendar.
Yeah, just took it back out.
All
Okay.
right.
She said, be in Gardena at 8:30. And I said, okay, I'm going to be there. So I went the next day to this woman's meeting, and I walk into a similar room, and it's got a bunch of people in the room, just like my flight room or my classroom when I was in the military. A bunch of people seated around the table, and they were ready for a meeting. And I sat down, they greeted me warmly. I got to introduce myself, and they basically said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to have some training, and then the people in this room are going to have some issue processing. They're going to help each other kind of solve problems. I said, wow, okay. We got a trainer that came in. We solved some problems together. I got to kind of peer into what they do. And at the end of the meeting, this woman said, what did you think about that? And I said, this is amazing. This was just like what I was used to in the military. And she said, look, I want to talk with you. Let's talk a little bit more. And we went and had some coffee together after that a couple more times. And after just chatting it up, she eventually gathered enough information about me and what it is I was doing and what it is I want to do. She sat me down and said, listen, we've had a few conversations and I've got to know your background. And she said, I'm from an organization which is called Vistage. And what Vistage is we take CEOs like the ones that you were seated with at my meeting that first time. We bring them in a room. We have a trainer come in, and then we do some issue processing, and we use each other as a board of directors. And I want you to become a speaker for Vistage, because what we do is we take you and we have you speak to leaders, future leaders, corporations, and businesses, and we have you do it all around the world. And I said, come with me. And she goes, what? And I go, come with me out to my car. She goes, okay. So she follows me out to my car. I go to my car and I open my car door and I reach into my car and I pull out this goal card. I wrote something down on a card like months before leaving the military. And on this goal card, I gave this card to her and she grabbed it and she read that card. And I want you to read this. I want you to read what that says on there.
It says, July 24, 2018. It says, my goal, I'm so happy and grateful now that I am being asked to speak and train corporations, businesses, leaders, and future leaders in every major city in the world. It says that right here on the paper that you laminated.
That I laminated.
Yeah. And is this a tape from?
It's in my car. Yeah, it's right on my console.
Dashboard?
Yes.
Wow.
And I gave that to her, and she just read that, and she looked up at me, and her jaw was just unhinged. She was like, oh my God. And I said, yeah. I wrote this down 3 months and 8 days before leaving the military. And then I met you. And she was like, I don't believe it. And I said, I don't either. You basically said exactly what was on this card, having no knowledge of this card at all. And since then, I became a speaker for Vistage, and now I'm speaking to leaders, future leaders, businesses, and corporations, and I'm doing it all around the world.
Wow.
You can't make this shit up.
And you've only been out of the military for 3 months.
3 months and some change. And it's just been accelerated.
And we were just talking before we started shooting about, I was like, what else do you have going on this week? You're like, oh, I have like 3 other events.
Yeah.
I'm speaking and
it's all just come about from having a goal.
Yeah.
And just leading myself towards that goal. And then people showing up out of nowhere. I had no control over that. I didn't know what Vistage was. I didn't know who this person was. And then I just have this goal. I have this thing in mind that I want to do, this person that I want to become. I just chased it. And things just kind of like align. And I can't explain how that happens. But now I'm like living proof that when you write things down, they're guaranteed to happen 100%.
So is that what you do now?
Yeah, basically what I do now is I go around to these groups in the same way that I visited that first group, that first initial group, that fourth day out of the military. I get to go and be a trainer within those groups and talk about not only my military experiences, but the lessons that I know about leadership and vision and goal setting and things like that that are applicable to the military, but also can be used for business to better a person's personal life or professional life. And it's just been taking off since then. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So you do speaking. You also do consulting and coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was kind of like an unintended consequence. I started out with just the training, and then after training a few groups and being exposed to some people just walk up and say, hey man, I really like the way you think, and I like the way that you've been doing this, and I like your background. Would you hold me accountable? Can we do some goals together? And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Because one of the things that I loved from being in the military was being that one-on-one like supervisor mentor to my junior airmen, and that made a difference in their lives because I had my life changed by a lot of great mentors in the military. So I was like, dude, why not? So the speaking, the training, the consulting, it's all just kind of come about organically.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
So who are you, the type of people that you're talking with in either groups or private coaching? Is it like a particular type of person, or is there a huge range?
So like those groups within Vistage, they're really just anywhere from the CEOs to like the exec teams within those businesses. But in that room, it's usually going to be someone who someone who represents one place of industry, like a bunch of people just from different corners of industry that don't work together, but they come together and they use each other as their board of directors to kind of solve problems together. One of the segments that we go through within a Vistage group is basically saying, hey, what's going on with your life, or you have an issue that you're trying to solve or a problem that you're trying to seek advice on. Give us the problem, help us by letting us ask the clarifying questions, and then we can give you the advice that you're seeking. And I remember that first time I went to that group, I was like, wow, this is why the successful stay successful. They ask each other questions and they have that humility to say, this is the problem. This is the problem in full. What do you guys think about this? What should I do? So those are those groups within Vistage. And then some of the other things that we were talking about before getting on the set was things with the high school students in the area. I love doing that stuff with the seniors in the area, doing lectures and those series things. And then I think all the other things really just range in between. Just recently I did some stuff with the Rotary Club being an organization that helps out with charitable things and really just goes on missions and things like that. So anything in the wheelhouse, anything in the chorus line of just inspiring, because I've been a big believer in this idea that people don't need money. People don't need a handout. People don't need a loaf of bread. People need inspiration, because if you got inspiration and you got something to fuel the imagination, you're going to do shit. Like you're going to get things done. And as long as that inspiration is coming consistently, it's going to push you to do more. It's going to push you to become more. I think the worst thing that I could ever have is someone to just hand me my dream. Because I mean, there's no growth there. The growth comes between the process of where it is you are and what it is you want to become. It's not really the goal. It's what it'll make of you to achieve something like that.
Right. I've heard that a lot, that it has to do more with the process than the results.
Yeah.
And that if there's not really a process to get the result, there's not really a motivation to even go for results, really, if it's too easy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I'm so interested in different personalities and how they motivate or not motivate other people. Meaning, I know that some people really respond well to like an empathetic, understanding approach, and other people need to be kicked in the ass to take action. How would you describe your style?
I think I recognize all the different styles. I might not be good at deploying all the different styles, but I think I know how to take the temperature in the room and understand what it is that resonates the best with the people that I'm speaking to. I do what I call like communications counterintelligence. So I like to sit with somebody, or I like to sit with the person organizing something and understand who's in the room. Like, what is it that they need? And what is it that I can search for within myself to give them? Because if it's a room of people who are a little bit more logical, then, I mean, I've spoke to a lot of engineers in my time in the military, and like squadron commanders and like strategic leaders, like the generals and stuff. And they're not really touchy-feely.
Right.
Like they want to know how it's going to be done. So I have to kind of like lean more towards the side of logic rather than fantasy, and maybe leave some emotion at the door. When it's a room like the Rotary Club or the high school students, they connect better when it's a little bit more personal and there is more compassion and empathy involved. So yeah, I always kind of say to myself, don't ever let what I want to say get in the way of what they need to hear. So understanding that there is a message that they're seeking, and I don't want to convolute that message with my own perspective and what I think they need to know.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching the episode. If you're interested in contributing to the conversation and supporting the show, there's 2 easy things you can do. 1, click subscribe, and 2, visit our Patreon page where you get exclusive access to the Exploring Minds community.